Alright guys, so I'm not gonna lie, I fell off the wagon a little bit. If you kept up with the recent videos, it's not with what you think or what people normally use that term for. But when I came to Thailand, I had given up on quite a few things, some of them for years at a time, and unfortunately, when I got here, I kind of fell back into it. Welcome to a borderline perfect day on Jomtien Beach. It's making my day a lot nicer because it is nice outside. Today is that day where you gotta run around, take care of all your responsibilities, be an adult, which is so much fun. I know we all love it. But in trying to break one of those bad habits, I'm making an effort to do all this by foot now and just get out and start to work back to where I was. Because honestly, in the past couple of weeks, I did some self-reflecting and was pretty bummed on it. So in at least walking to do some more stuff, even though it's pretty rough here sometimes because it is so hot. But sometimes to get the stuff that you want, you just gotta kind of power through it, right? So what the hell does any of this have to do with you? Well, if you're planning on coming to Thailand and either of these two things that I kind of lost sight of, if they're goals that you want to stick with or something that you gave up that you don't want to pick back up again, if you're coming to Thailand, it might be pretty easy for you to fall back into it. So I hope this video just gives you an idea of what to expect. That way you can start wrapping your mind around it. You can start building up those walls a little bit more. So it's not something that you have to worry about when you get here. Now granted, just like with anything else, habits, good or bad, depend on you. You might have a stronger willpower than I do, or you might have less of one. So in this case, you can use me for a reference, and that way you can stick with your goals. A long time ago, when I was just a sprouting young man, I read this thing somewhere that said it takes 2 weeks to make or break a habit. Now, I don't know how true that time frame is for everybody. I think it might take more to break a bad habit and hopefully less to build a good habit. But for some reason, that really stuck with me. And for a long time, I've really felt like building good habits, no matter how small they are, going throughout your day can kind of help you improve to a point where it's easier to do those big things that you don't want to do. Because I mean, come on, we all know that a lot of the times the things we know we need to do are often the things that we don't want to do. But in that same article where I read that, I read this thing that said one of the easiest things you can do, one of the best good habits you can start is making your bed in the morning. Now, this might be just a habit for a lot of people. Maybe your parents kind of beat it into you when you were a kid. And the reason this article said that that was a good thing, it's because when you do that and you start your day with a good habit, in theory, when you wake up, that should be the first thing you do is make your bed. And essentially, you're starting your day with a win. You're starting your day with accomplishing something. So moving throughout the rest of the day, it's easy to kind of keep up that habit and keep it rolling to where you want to get more and more things done. But of course, not all habits are good habits, right? Now, when I was a young man, when I was a lot more naive than I am right now, I definitely picked up some bad ones. And when I was in America, one of the main ones, I actually dropped it for almost 4 years, I want to say. And then unfortunately, when I came to Thailand, it was around me all the time again, and I picked it back up, and I have been doing it since I've been here. I've quit for a few weeks, maybe a month at a time, which is something I've been very unhappy about for a while. But just like anything else, habits, addiction, essentially the same thing. It is hard to just get rid of. And if you haven't figured out what that one is by now, smoking. Now, hopefully, if you only know me from these videos, you didn't know that I was a smoker. I do make a conscious effort to always keep them off camera, or even if I'm sitting somewhere filming, I always make sure that a pack of cigarettes is out of the frame. One, because I don't want to essentially promote it to anybody because I do have some younger viewers. But really the biggest reason is because honestly, I'm embarrassed by it. I know it's a gross habit and it's something that I gave up in America. I was embarrassed by the fact that I do it, and I was more embarrassed by the fact that I had picked it up again. Now, if you're in America, you probably know by this point that not a lot of people smoke anymore. It's honestly great. Unfortunately for me and a lot of people my age, I was kind of that last generation where smoking was cool. When we were young, there was still companies that were marketing cigarettes to kids, even though they would never admit that. But a lot of the packaging, branding, Camel especially, was marketed towards kids. And then luckily, once I got out of school, the next generation coming up with all the anti-tobacco campaigns, the amount of kids smoking just plummeted. And then unfortunately vapes came into the picture and kind of pumped that back up again, which is a bummer. But if you are a smoker or you were a smoker and it is something you're trying to quit and you're planning on coming to Thailand, it is everywhere. And it's not like in America where there's all these crazy taxes and everything on it to try to get people to not want to spend that much money on it to help them quit. In Thailand, it is dirt cheap. So that is something to think about if you're coming here. If you've been off the stogies for a while, keep going strong, but just know that you're gonna be exposed to it a lot more here than you are theoretically in America. So that's just one of the bad habits that I picked up. And the second one, honestly, is pretty much just as bad, if not worse. So the second one, I guess, really is not as big of a deal. It kind of is for me, but the first one, obviously you don't want to smoke. It's really bad for your health. It's expensive. But the second one could definitely fall into that too. And I think it's one of those things that can be harder for a lot of people. I know it is for myself because it's kind of a slow burn. Not really like picking up smoking or something like that, you know as soon as it happens. Now honestly, I didn't really notice. I'm sure some of my friends from America who watch these videos probably notice. And in America, it's not really one of those things that people will say unless you're really close, and even then they kind of might sugarcoat it. But honestly, one of my Thai friends here that I first met when I first got to Thailand, hadn't seen her in a long time. We met up not too long ago and she asked me about it and asked if I noticed, and I really hadn't until luckily I started to go back and watch some of these videos a little bit more, and I was like, holy shit, she's right. And for me, honestly, what it is I was getting pudgy. Now, of course, overweight is relative to everybody. What I think is overweight, you might not, but for me, generally, I've been in pretty good shape most of my life. I've been playing sports even all the way up through my 20s, pretty much always been doing something active. So I was never the big buff guy, but I was never pudgy. But looking back at some videos and then comparing them to old photos and stuff, and I was definitely putting on weight in all the wrong places. So with New Year's just happening, I realized what a better time to try to flip the switch on one of these bad habits, which is just not eating well or not being active enough, and replace it with a good habit. And luckily with the smoking thing, I can kind of replace both with a good habit, which is going and working out or being active. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you've got anything going on for you right now that you're proud of, or it's a good habit, or you've replaced a bad habit, make sure you're sticking with it. And to anybody that might be a smoker, I feel like I didn't really hear about this before I got here. I don't know if I would have changed anything at all, but I figured it might be good to let you know. And I want this video to also kind of serve as a reminder myself, and for you guys to hold me accountable. If you ever meet me in person or see me smoking a cigarette, or you see me continuing to get fat on these videos, feel free to light me up in the comments. But another small bad habit that I have is procrastination. We've made it around. I paid all my bills before they were due. I paid my phone before it was shut off. So far, today's a win. So if you've got something you're shooting for, stick with it. I will catch you guys in the next one.